Well, hello there, little masters, and welcome once again to the Prancing Pony Podcast, where tonight the good stuff might taste a little charred and smoky.
Dragon singed good stuff. West to Hall, my friends. I'm Sean Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, the Aragorn to my Aemir, Alan Sisto.
Thank you, Sean. Well, folks, tonight we're going back to the Silmarillion to continue our read of Chapter 21 of Túrin Turambar. This is the second of 3 episodes on this chapter, so if you haven't listened to the first part of our discussion, please pick that up before you continue with this one. It would be like watching the Temple of Doom before Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No one should ever do that.
Never. Of course, that's technically a prequel, isn't it? But we digress.
Yeah, that's true.
We digress. That was fast.
Well, that was fast. That didn't take any time at all.
None.
But back to the point. So yeah, the first episode of this series was actually episode 36, Fly by Night Away from Here. So that's actually the 2 episodes before this one in the feed.
That is correct. Our last episode was our special with Simon Tolkien talking about No Man's Land.
Yeah, which we truly hope you all enjoyed.
Yeah.
That was definitely an interesting discussion there. And now, as you said, Alan, I guess we're leaving the heartbreak of the Western Front in World War I behind and going back to Beleriand for the heartbreak of Túrin's life, I guess.
I guess the whole thing. You're not kidding.
Pretty
We've got lots and lots of heartbreak to get through tonight. A little Heartbreak Hotel. That's before we get to the third part of this chapter, when it gets really bad.
Really heartbreaky. Achy breaky.
Achy breaky heart. Before we do, Sean, do we have anything from Old Barliman to start with tonight?
You know, as much as it pains me to do it, I think we're going to have to skip Barliman's bag tonight.
Okay.
You know, you and I both have so much we want to say about the rest of this Túrin story.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think we've got some nice long readings tonight, and I think you've got a new voice for us tonight, don't you?
I very well might.
So
I want to. I'll try to be very draconian with it, but you know.
Oh, well done. Well done. So yeah, I think we probably ought to just jump right into it. But I do want to just put folks' minds at ease. So, you know, I know lots of you have written into Barliman.
Yeah.
Some of you not heard back yet. Don't worry. We've got a lot of questions on a lot of comments that are there. Yeah. We will be getting to all of them, we promise. And I don't think there's anything older than maybe 8 or 9 months at this point. So
what do we promise on, our precious? What do we promise on?
Ooh, yeah. We promise on the precious. We promise.
Precious.
And on Barliman's Ale. We promise on Barliman's Ale that we'll get to.
On the good stuff. We promise on the good stuff.
That's right.
So, well, very good. Well, then, let's go ahead and get on with the discussion. Sean, if you could maybe give us a brief recap.
Yeah, I think I'll do that. Even though, we did say go ahead and listen to that first episode first, but just in case,
in case you disobeyed.
In case you can't get to it, we're not going to be draconian about things. So in our last episode on this chapter, we introduced Túrin. He's the son of Húrin of Dor-lómin, and of course, you probably recall that Húrin was captured after the Nirnaeth Arnordiad, and he's currently a guest of Morgoth.
A guest of Morgoth. That's a way to put it.
Being tormented by Morgoth. So Túrin is actually sent by his mother Morwen to Doriath, where Thingol fosters him.
Morgoth's patio. He's got a little. He's got quite a view over there. You know.
He does have quite a view.
All he has.
He's got Morgoth's special binoculars that he's looking through. His opera glasses.
Yeah.
But so Morwen sends her son Túrin to Doriath, where Thingol fosters him basically as his own son.
Yeah.
And Túrin fights for Thingol for some time, but a little misunderstanding over dinner one night leads him to leave Menegroth and go and join a band of outlaws that he ends up actually becoming the leader of. So his friend Beleg, who was one of the captains in Thingol's army, comes after him, tries to talk him into coming back to Doriath, but Túrin won't. He runs off again, hoping to get Beleg to leave him alone. And he ends up spending some time with a dwarf named Mime, the last of the petty dwarves. Beleg ends up catching up to him again, and doesn't talk Túrin into coming back, but he does talk him into at least using his talents as a warrior for good. At least do something useful. Fight some of the orcs that are roaming around here like crazy, and that's exactly what Túrin does. Túrin and Beleg together. Was it the Bow and Helm?
The Land of Helm and Bow.
The Land of Helm and Bow. Yeah, the Dor Cuarthal.
I love
And so they go out there, sort of clean up the town a little bit, or clean up, not the town, but clean up the area. And then what happens? Morgoth hits back, doesn't he?
Yeah, always does.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this with Bear, and I remember just don't ever get too good at fighting the bad guys.
Stay under the radar.
They'll notice you and come after you.
Yes, they will.
So that's exactly what they did. The meme ended up betraying Túrin and his band of merry men, and they ended up getting sort of ambushed by orcs, and Túrin was actually captured.
Right.
Beleg, steadfast friend that he is, ends up coming after Túrin. On the way, he meets Gwindor, an elf of Nargothrond, who's actually an escaped thrall of Morgoth. He also was captured in the Near Ninth Ornadiad and was a guest of Morgoth. So Beleg and Gwindor went after Túrin, rescued Túrin from the orcs by cover of darkness.
Yeah.
Good old Túrin repays his friend Beleg all his loyalty and dedication in saving him. Túrin repays this by killing Beleg, though it was an accident.
Of course.
Of course. Túrin is distraught, absolutely in shock, mad with it, paralyzed almost with it. And without Gwindor, really would have, who knows what, probably would have wandered off, disappeared somewhere. But Gwindor kind of tethers him, keeps him alive.
Good way.
Ends up taking he ends up taking him to Aethel Ivrin, which is where Túrin drinks of the waters, these waters sacred to Ulmo. This cures him of his grief, and then Gwindor decides to take him back home to Nargothrond. And that's basically where we're picking up today.
That is where we're picking up. So now they're on their way back, and what happens when they get there? Well, I'll go ahead and take this first paragraph of tonight's reading, and we'll discuss.
All right, sounds good.
At first his own people did not know Gwindor, who went out young and strong, and returned now, seeming as one of the aged among mortal men, because of his torments and his labors. But Finduilas, daughter of Orodreth the king, knew him and welcomed him, for she had loved him before the Nirnaeth, and so greatly did Gwindor love her beauty that he named her File Ivrin, which is the gleam of the sun on the pools of Ivrin. For Gwindor's sake, Túrin was admitted with him into Nargothrond, and he dwelt there in honor. But when Gwindor would tell his name, Túrin checked him, saying, I am Agarwain, the son of Umarth, which is the blood-stained, son of ill-fate, a hunter in the woods. And the elves of Nargothrond questioned him no more. Well, this is a new habit of his, changing his name.
Changing his name,
We'll see that a few more times.
We'll see it a few times,
Keep score. We've got a count for you at the end of the episode.
Yeah, definitely. We get a couple of nicknames in this passage, actually. I really like the nickname that Gwindor is given to Finduilas here.
That's pretty.
File Ivrin. And this is a reference to the pools of Ivrin, the ones I was just talking about, where he healed Túrin. Kind of getting a sense now of why that lake was so significant to Gwindor, I guess. Reminded him of this woman that he cared very deeply about.
And not just any woman; she's the daughter of the king, so she is a princess. This is, she's an Eldoran princess. Very important to remember that. Yeah. Somehow I'd forgotten that for most of the story. I don't know why. I mean, it's right there at the beginning.
Probably because Orodreth doesn't come across as much of a king. I don't know.
Orodreth isn't exactly kingly, is he?
No, he's not the most regal man and not the most regal elf we meet.
He's just taking turns. It's they're taking turns playing sort of administrative executive of the week. It's an anarcho-syndicalist commune.
Yeah, exactly.
Just have it in turns. Play sort of a executive of the week.
That didn't take long either.
No, it didn't, did it?
No.
Oh, goodness.
Help, I'm being repressed.
Oh, boy. Again, all night.
All night.
Folks, we should just tell you right now, we might be a little silly. It's late. We normally start a little earlier than this in our recordings, but yeah. So anyway, that's just your warning. But so what happens next? Túrin kind of becomes the big man on campus, doesn't he?
Yeah, he really does. I'll go ahead and take the next paragraph here.
Yeah.
In the time that followed, Túrin grew high in favor with Orodreth, and well-nigh all hearts were turned to him in Nargothrond. For he was young, and only now reached his full manhood, and he was in truth the son of Morwen Eledwen to look upon, dark-haired and pale-skinned, with grey eyes, and his face more beautiful than any other among mortal men in the elder days.
Wow.
His speech and bearing were that of the ancient kingdom of Doriath, and even among the elves he might be taken for one from the great houses of the Noldor. Therefore many called him Adonadel, the elf man. The sword Anglihel was forged anew for him by cunning smiths of Nargothrond, and though ever black, its edges shone with pale fire, and he named it Gurthang, Iron of Death.
Iron of Death. Oh,
that's a powerful name.
That's a good name for a sword.
That's a good name for a Scandinavian metal band.
Again, there probably is one.
There probably is one. If there isn't, and if anyone wants to start one, just throw us a little special thanks on the first album.
We welcome tips. All hearts, well nigh all hearts turned to. I kind of thought, it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems kind of like the folks in Nargothrond are maybe just a little bit fickle. They followed Caranthir and Curufin, and then they changed their minds and went back to following Orodreth, and now all their hearts are turned to Túrin.
Túrin.
They're easily persuaded. I don't know.
You know, that is interesting. The thing that jumped out at me with this was, how much his appearance had to do with it. He's young and he's handsome, as opposed to poor Gwindor, who's been laboring in the dungeons of Morgoth and looks like an old man. Yeah. Which, boy, not only are they fickle, but it seems like they're a bit superficial too.
Just a touch. Even poor Finduilas ends up succumbing to that. We'll see in a little bit. I want to talk about his physical appearance, though, for a little bit. I wanted to read a quick reminder from chapter 17 about the men of the three houses, that for this house, they were dark or brown of hair with gray eyes, and of all men they were most like to the Noldor and most loved by them, for they were eager of mind, cunning-handed, swift in understanding, long in memory, and, this is key, I think, they were moved sooner to pity than to laughter.
Oh, yeah, right.
Remember, that reminds me of what we talked about last week when we quoted Christopher Tolkien in his introduction from Children of Húrin, where he talked about Túrin's severity and lack of gaiety.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And his sense of justice and his compassion.
That's
where
right.
He contrasted that with Húrin. Húrin was very, quick to laugh. He was
right. He was very much the people of Hador.
Exactly.
Kind of boisterous and jovial and
And Túrin is very much his mother's son in this regard, not only physically but even in his personality in terms of that severity.
Definitely.
Very
that's definitely true. That's a good catch, and I think it's
an
a good
important
catch
thing to remember. Yeah,
definitely, and important to point out, like you said, the House of Beor that he takes after, though he is in name of the House of Hador. And by title he's of the House of Hador, but he definitely takes over after the House of Beor, and they're not. They're like the Noldor. They're kind of a sad, somber people.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Swift in understanding, long in memory. I love that.
Yeah.
Though there are times where Túrin isn't so swift in understanding, if you ask me.
Well,
a little thick.
That's really true. I mean, and we'll talk more about some of the choices he makes as we go.
Yeah.
I mean, probably a lot next episode.
Yeah,
too,
even more next one, I'm sure.
But it strikes me how often he just kind of jumps into these things without really thinking of what's going on, or
very short term. A lot of his decisions end up being
very short term,
expedient,
short-sighted,
very short-sighted. Yeah. But and then we see that his face is more beautiful than any other among mortal men in the elder days. Wow,
that's really saying something, isn't it?
He made Balerian's Sexiest Man Alive cover for like 12 years running, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not 12 years running.
Maybe not all the years he was in hiding. Well, he kept on changing his name. They thought it was a different guy every time.
Yeah, we have a rule against the same guy winning it twice. Oh, you're Agarwayan. Okay, sure.
Okay.
Oh, you're Adonadel. Okay, great.
It's interesting how much he looks like the son of Húrin, isn't it? But he's not.
Yeah, he's not. Adonadel guy. He looks just like that Agarwayan guy.
Yeah, that's too funny.
Adonadel, the elf man. I guess that's better than Ethel Adon, the man elf, right?
Well, it's interesting. That's another parallel to his mother, isn't it? I mean, we see here that his mother's
or something like
his mother's name was Elethwen, which, yeah, it is translated as Elfsheen in a few chapters ago when she was
Right.
first mentioned. But that when suffix does often mean lady or maiden too.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
So
Arwen
I don't know.
comes to mind. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Arwen. Yeah, exactly. So it definitely means something like either beautiful as an elf or she looks like an elf. Either way, there's a clear parallel between elf sheen or even elf maiden and
You just
elf
hear
man.
Steven Tyler's voice now. Lady looks like an elf. I'm not going to try to sing that one. Oh man.
Wow, that works so well
It
too.
does. Steven
because
Tyler
of Liv
being,
Tyler.
yeah. Isn't that awesome?
That's perfect.
Full
Yeah.
circle, man.
Man, why didn't they get Steven Tyler to play Elrond?
Oh gosh.
We're gonna get some hate mail over that
Whoa,
one. Forget I said that one.
I didn't say that. I just want.
Forget I said that.
I will be accepting applications beginning next week. A
Man.
new co-host. I had to fire the last one,
Man.
but don't worry. I gave him 6 months severance.
Can you imagine Peter Jackson just saying like, "No, Steven, walk this way."
Wow.
I'll stop now.
We gotta stop. We're never gonna get through this. Oh, folks, this is gonna be a good one. Anglakel reforged as Gurthang, Iron of Death. I think we already talked about how awesome a name that is.
Oh yeah.
And then we find in the next paragraph, we're not reading it, but we find out that he now has become known as Mormogil, the Black Sword. So we get 3 names just in this paragraph.
Just in this paragraph.
Or in this section here.
Or in this, yeah, right.
And, in a grim mood, he finds a dwarf mask, all gilded. And sure enough, everybody runs. And then, sadly, Finduilas, her love, she's no longer Finduilas. Gwindor just doesn't look as good as he used to look. I'm sorry.
No.
You're more like a friend to me now. Can we just be friends?
Friend zoned after being in the dungeon, man.
Seriously, dungeon
that's
is
rough.
bad enough. Thrall of Morgoth. I come back and I'm friend zoned. What's up with that? Oh,
No, man.
and it's because she's got the hots for the guy I saved.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, pal.
That makes it sound so much worse than it did before.
Doesn't
Man,
it?
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, Túrin's clueless because sometimes he is.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and take this next little part where Gwindor does the right thing. The more we look at Gwindor, the more I really like this guy. You know what I mean?
I'm with you. I mean,
he's such wisdom.
Yeah. Well, and so much loyalty to her. I mean, we'll get to it in a minute, but so much loyalty to Túrin, despite the fact that he really doesn't know him that well. I mean,
No.
and
one of
Bella
the first things he
spent his-
watched him do was kill a friend. I mean,
That's true.
again, by accident. We keep coming
That is
back to
true.
that. This is,
Yeah.
this was
But it's
not
true.
something-
I mean,
yeah.
He's clearly a guy who's not good luck to be around. But Beleg has at least years and years of friendship that drove him. Gwindor doesn't have that, but man,
No.
he sees something in Túrin.
He really does. And now he's going to talk to Finduilas about that.
All right.
But Gwindor sat in dark thought, and on a time he spoke to Finduilas, saying, Daughter of the house of Finarfin, let no grief lie between us. For though Morgoth has laid my life in ruin, you still I love. Go whither love leads you. Yet beware. It is not fitting that the elder children of Iluvatar should wed with the younger. Nor is it wise, for they are brief and soon pass, to leave us in widowhood while the world lasts. Neither will fate suffer it, unless it be once or twice only, for some high cause of doom that we do not perceive. But this man is not barren. A doom indeed lies on him, as seeing eyes may well read in him, but a dark doom. Enter not into it, and if you will, your love shall betray you to bitterness and death. For hearken to me, though he be indeed Agarwean, son of Umarth, his right name is Túrin, son of Húrin, whom Morgoth holds in Angband, and whose kin he is cursed. Doubt not the power of Morgoth Bauglir. Is it not written in me? Then Finduilas sat long in thought, but at the last she said only, Túrin, son of Húrin, loves me not, nor will. Now when Túrin learnt from Finduilas of what had passed, he was wrathful, And he said to Gwindor, "In love I hold you for rescue and safekeeping, but now you have done ill to me, friend, to betray my right name, and call my doom upon me, from which I would lie hid." But Gwindor answered, "The doom lies in yourself, not in your name." Wow, Gwindor.
Man. What? Yeah. Man, this guy's awesome. I mean,
he really is. The
this is
wisdom
the woman
that he shows.
Yeah. And this is the woman he loves.
Yeah.
And he's telling her, you know what? Hey, look, if you love this guy,
Go
sure,
for it.
You have my blessing to go after him, but you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, you might want to think twice. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
telling you this like for my own self-interest here. I'm telling you this because I care about you and I don't want you to, go to bitterness and death.
Yeah. And I like that he goes at it from two angles. His argument is really from two angles. One is the sort of the loftier, philosophically, this isn't really going to work because the elder children of
elves and
Iluvatar,
men, it's just not.
It's not going to work.
This doesn't look like one of the exceptions.
Yeah, right, exactly. Unless it's some high cause of doom that we do not perceive. So that's one. But then there's a very personal appeal to her too,
Right.
that your love will betray you to bitterness and death.
Look at what Morgoth did to me.
Look at what Morgoth did to me. And it's interesting that he talks again about the curse that Morgoth has placed on, or has apparently placed on Húrin's family.
Yeah.
It's the second time I think the curse is mentioned. The first time was just a page or two ago, and it was Gwindor mentioning it there too.
Right, because of course he had known about it from being in Angband.
Right. And there, that first time I think we talked about this. It's a little bit more clear that this is something Gwindor has heard of.
Right.
And I know we'll get to that probably a little bit more in next episode when we kind of do the retrospective on Túrin's life and look at the this idea of a curse. But it's
That's
just
really
very
an interesting topic. I can't wait to get to that.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting here. I think he's. The number of times that fate has already been mentioned, fate or doom, have already been mentioned in this section that we're talking. It's very, very interesting.
It really is. I also wanted to note that this is interesting. It was against her will that her love was given to Túrin. It's like she didn't choose this. It's fascinating. I didn't even know that kind of thing would be possible for an elf. But
yeah, I know, and I picked up on that too. And that to me is another. That to me seems another sort of subtle indication of fate.
Yeah,
if it's
kind
not
of
her
behind
will,
the scenes outside of her control.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't want to. It's still her free will to choose what she does with that. But there are certain things that are kind of placed in the lives of these people.
Right.
You can have a feeling in your still theirs.
Right. Exactly. You can have a feeling in your heart. What you choose to do with that feeling.
Yeah, it's still volitional. It's still part of your volition.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So,
but it is interesting that this even her love is against her will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to do a quick, very tiny little sidebar on his first point of why she shouldn't marry, and that's the discussion of this these rare marriages between elves and men. We talked about this a little bit with Beren and Luthien. Here it's really clear. I mean, it is made absolutely crystal clear. It's not fitting. I mean, it really isn't. It shouldn't be done. And then. Notice, by the way, that what two children are listed: the elder children and the younger children. Not
right, elves and men.
Not the dwarves.
Not the adopted children.
Not the adopted children. And I say that as an adoptive father. I'm trying to think of but they're not. The elder children, younger children are who Iluvatar created, and that's why they're part of the same kind of race, if you will. That's why they're able to reproduce and create offspring that can themselves have children.
Right.
That makes them, fit for each other in that sense, not dwarves. But
even then,
it's still not wise. They're brief. They die. They leave us, and we have to live the rest of our lives without that. And then neither will fate suffer it. It's just not gonna happen.
Right.
Iluvatar is not going to allow it to happen. Fate's not going to allow it to happen.
Right.
Unless it's just this once or twice.
And it's only going to be
important
part of this plan. Yeah.
Exactly.
And we've already seen that with Beren.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about the plan with Beren.
Yep. And we'll see it again with Tuor, of course.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Túrin's cousin, which we talked about a little bit last time. And I will get to this more when we actually talk about Tuor, but there's so many
total
contrasts.
opposite of Túrin.
The total, I mean, I once did like a point for point, like, okay, well, Túrin has dark hair, Tuor has blonde hair. I mean, there's some very superficial opposites, but there are also some very significant opposites in terms of the role they play.
Yeah.
And here's a perfect example of that. Túrin is, by Gwindor's, thinking here, Túrin is not one of the ones who's destined to do this, who's destined to marry with an elf.
Yeah. And Tuor, of course, obviously is.
And Tuor is, yeah.
Now, before we move to the next section, which I know we need to get to if we're going to keep this under 17 hours today, I also wanted to notate that, interestingly enough, Túrin is not even upset. He's not even bothered or fazed by the fact, apparently, that Finduilas loves him. He's not saying, wow, thanks for letting me know, Gwindor. I've been wanting some company. I'm going to go talk to her. No, he's not upset that she loves him. He's not upset that she loves him. He's upset that Gwindor told her his real name.
Right.
Like, that's the problem.
And the reason that upsets him.
Yep.
Because he would lie hid from his doom.
Isn't that fascinating? We'll see that over and over again, won't we?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we will. I mean, that's the clearest statement of why he keeps changing his name.
Yeah.
I think we might have talked about this in the previous episode with the hindsight of knowing this passage here. But he really is changing his name because he's fleeing from his doom. And I like that Gwindor tells him that it's not, the doom is in yourself. Yeah. It's not in your name.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think well, again, we'll talk more about fate. We'll talk more about curses and things like that. But I think the real takeaway from this is whatever is driving your life to be what it is, changing your name isn't going to change.
Isn't going to help.
Either you're cursed and you're not going to be able to get away from it, or you're just making bad choices.
Right.
And changing your name isn't going to stop that.
Neither one is it going to stop.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's great. You're right. I mean, Gwindor's wisdom is just it's wonderful.
Yeah. The more I look at Gwindor, the more wow, he's right up there with the other good ones. Though he's not long for this world.
No.
Spoiler for something that happens in 2 or 3 pages, right? So now,
and which you should have already read, probably.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely should have read it by now. So we know that we find out that as popular as he was before, now that they know who he is, he even gets more honor and more power. So tell us a little bit about what happens then.
All right. So it does say he became mighty among the people of Nargothrond, and then I'm going to pick it up from the sentence after that.
Sure.
But he had no liking for their manner of warfare, of ambush and stealth and secret arrow, and he yearned for brave strokes and battle in the open. And his counsels weighed with the king ever the longer the more. In those days the elves of Nargothrond forsook their secrecy, and went openly to battle, and great store of weapons were made. And by the counsel of Túrin the Noldor built a mighty bridge over the Narog from the doors of Felagund, for the swifter passage of their arms. Then the servants of Angband were driven out of all the land between Narog and Sirion eastward, and westward to the Nenning and the desolate Falas. And though Gwindor spoke ever against Túrin and the counsel of the king, holding it an ill policy, he fell into dishonor, and none heeded him. For his strength was small, and he was no longer forward in arms. Thus Nargothrond was revealed to the wrath and hatred of Morgoth.
Again, should have stayed low on the radar.
Yeah, you never want to get noticed
by
the bad
attention
guys.
of this guy.
Yeah.
My goodness. So, we'll talk a little bit more about this doesn't like the way they fight sort of thing. And definitely more about the bridge in a little bit.
Yeah.
The Gwindor thing. Go ahead. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, no, I was looking at the Orodreth thing here, just the fact that, the longer he just kind of wore Orodreth down.
Yeah.
Basically.
Ever the longer, the more. Yeah.
Ever the longer, the more. Finally, Orodreth said, you know what? Yeah, you make a good point. Finally, right. The 100th time you're telling me this. Again, we talked about Orodreth easily swayed.
Yeah, and the people like Túrin, so Orodreth likes Túrin.
People like Túrin. And poor Gwindor, again,
I know.
The superficiality of the people of Nargothrond. Túrin is the new hotness. He's young, he's handsome, he's a good fighter. Gwindor, been with him for ages. And because he's, now it's explicitly said that because he can't really fight anymore. Nobody
he's
really
old and damaged, I'm sure, from those years.
Yeah.
Hunched over in the mines of Angband.
Yeah, and so nobody appreciates his strategy.
All he has is wisdom. He doesn't have strength in arms anymore. But they won't listen to him, not now at least. And Nargothrond is revealed. That's the thing that was keeping Nargothrond strong was in large part its secrecy, just like with Turgon and Gondolin. That secrecy.
Yeah, they don't have a girdle of Melian protecting them.
No,
they've got
no Maya, no girdle.
Right, exactly. They've just got secrecy. The fact that it's hidden under the in the Valley of the Narog, and
they have no idea. And now they know.
There's there's a bridge. I wonder what that bridge goes to. So
we do see though in the next section that we're not going to read that thankfully there's one bit of good that comes from this. This draws the attention of Morgoth, but it also allows Morwen and Nienor to flee Dor-Lomin and get to Doriath. So they're able to get out of a very dangerous and unpleasant place and get to a safe place where they can be, kind of held in esteem. Mm-hmm. But of course, they think Túrin's going to be there, and he's not. But if he was still there, then he Morgoth wouldn't have been able to be drawn away. So
exactly.
In a way, this is the only way that they were going to be able to get there.
A diversion. That was my my Legolas impression.
That was really brief. I love that.
Thank you.
It's very hard to get an impression in 2 words.
I know. Yeah, that's why I do that, because my Orlando Bloom is not that good. So.
Well, all you got to do is just have your eyes change from blue to brown in 2 different scenes, and then we'll believe you're him.
Well said. Yeah. Yep. We should give credit where, in regards to this, the bridge. I guess we're going to talk about the fact that the bridge ends up being a very bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we did just now, but and we'll go more into that.
Yes, we will. We'll even
I
hear
can't
why
remember
it's
what we talked about 2 minutes ago. But it is actually effective in the short term, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's very effective.
Because of the way it clears these pathways. Yeah.
Yeah, it enables them to get the armies out in larger numbers.
Yeah.
And that's what enables them to drive out all the servants of Angband from that region.
Right. So that is a good thing. But again, as you said a moment ago, he's he's short-sighted.
Yeah.
A lot of Túrin's
it's a nice temporary victory, but all it does is draw attention to exactly where you are.
Yeah.
So if survival was your goal, this may not be your best bet. But if temporary victory and glory is your goal,
and feeling good for now,
short term, yeah. So again, we're not going to read the next paragraph either, but we get the arrival of 2 elves, Gelmir and Arminas. They're from Angrod's people. So remember that Angrod is the brother to Finrod and Ordreth. So these guys are from the cousin, or I'm sorry, from the brother of the king. So you'd think that they'd hold some weight. They came from the south. They were with Círdan, and they talked about. They'd come from the north. Even though they live in the south with Círdan, they'd gone up north, and they had
gone north and now come back. Right.
So they were able to say, "There's a big army coming. There's a very, very big army. It's on the way." And I'm going to go ahead and take their actual warning. "Hear the words of the Lord of Waters," they said to the king. Thus he spoke to Círdan the shipwright. "The evil of the north has defiled the springs of Sirion, and my power withdraws from the fingers of the flowing waters. But a worse thing is yet to come forth. Say therefore to the Lord of Nargothrond, shut the doors of the fortress, and go not abroad. Cast the stones of your pride into the loud river, that the creeping evil may not find the gate." Orodreth was troubled by the dark words of the messengers. An aside, shouldn't he be?
You think. Yeah.
But Túrin would by no means hearken to these counsels, and least of all would he suffer the great bridge to be cast down, for he was become proud and stern, and would order all things as he wished. Well, now we get the problem. There's the problem right there.
maybe Túrin shouldn't love too much the work of his hands. I don't know. Just saying.
You know, when a Vala tells you something, I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be.
You listen
I mean, I guess we see Thingol doesn't always listen to Amaya, but come on, this isn't even just one of the Valar. This is one of the powers of the world. This is one of the big three.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, in Thingol's defense, he lives with her. She's always talking.
She's always talking.
That sounds terrible. That's not what I mean.
Really
I just mean
bad.
that's not what I mean.
That sounds terrible.
That's not what I mean. I just mean he probably takes her for granted because he's used to her.
I just see it now. Thingol's talking to his...
She's always talking.
I never
know if is it a prophecy or what? I don't know.
She's just nagging me about something.
I am so sorry to everyone.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, I don't believe Sean meant that the way it came out. No. I'd like, ladies and gentlemen, or I'm sorry, just ladies, I'd like to apologize on behalf of Sean.
I'd like to apologize to my wife.
Yeah. Certainly we weren't thinking of them.
No. But it just, this is, Melling is someone he lives with.
You're right. It's easy to kind of ignore the person that you live with, regardless of who they are. I'll try to get you out of that one. But
you're not helping either of us now.
Ulmo's sending a.
But this is Ulmo. This is this is a direct warning from Avala.
Yeah.
That presumably isn't always hanging around Círdan's house.
Right.
Saying things.
Well, presumably not.
Right.
And it's very
asking him
specific.
if he took out the trash and stuff.
I mean, this is, sometimes prophecies are vague, and you're like, I wonder what that means. We're going to have... So this is really clear.
There's nothing vague about this one.
Shut the door, knock the bridge down. I mean, you just can't get any clearer. Do this.
And the stones of your pride. He's even included a little reference to why you should do it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and then the practical reason of why is that the creeping evil may not find the gate.
Yeah, because
you don't want the creeping evil
thing that is yet to come forth.
Yeah, there is no raid for the creeping evil.
No. I just noticed the pride, stones of your pride, and then Túrin was become proud.
Proud and stern. And would order all things as he wished. He gets to do it. He's basically the king, and we'll get to that. I mean, he's not in name the king, but he gets to do whatever he wants, which pretty much makes you a king.
Yeah, true.
Oh man,
I just love that his reaction is, oh no, we're not getting rid of the bridge. That's
whatever.
Stones of my pride. I'm too proud of those stones of my pride.
Durr.
I'm very proud of those.
I mean, that's just it.
Man.
Wow. Yeah, we'll talk about pride real soon. In fact, right after we end this next little section, tell us a little bit about the actual battle itself. So, sure enough, the army comes. Handir, Lord of Brethil, was slain. The men of Brethil are driven back into the woods. And what happens after that?
Well, I think we're about to find out about this creeping evil.
Yes, we are.
And in the autumn of the year, biding his hour, Morgoth loosed upon the people of Narog the great host that he had long prepared. And Glaurung, the Urloki, passed over Anfauglith, and came thence into the north vales of Sirion, and there did great evil. Under the shadows of Ered Wethrin he defiled the Aethel Ivrin, and thence he passed into the realm of Nargothrond, and burned the Talath Dirnan, the guarded plain between Narog and Teglin. Then the warriors of Nargothrond went forth, and tall and terrible on that day looked Túrin, and the heart of the host was upheld, as he rode on the right hand of Orodreth. But greater far was the host of Morgoth than any scouts had told, and none but Túrin, defended by his dwarf mask, could withstand the approach of Glaurung. And the elves were driven back and pressed by the orcs into the field of Tumhalad, between Ginglith and Narog, and there they were penned. On that day, all the pride and host of Nargothrond withered away, and Orodreth was slain in the forefront of the battle, and Gwindor son of Guilin was wounded to the death. But Túrin came to his aid, and all fled before him, and he bore Gwindor out of the rout, and escaping into a wood, there laid him on the grass.
Oh, man. Total defeat.
Total rout.
Total rout. They're just
very, very descriptive word, rout.
Yeah. Orodreth slain. This is the brother of Finrod. This is not Noldoran royalty.
Yeah.
And they went out there looking. I love this at the beginning of the paragraph. Tall and terrible on that day looked Túrin. The heart of the host is upheld. But wow, the army was a whole lot bigger.
They thought they were. Yeah, I mean, they thought they were like,
yeah,
Túrin, he's our man. They thought. Yeah, they thought they were going to do it.
Handle anything. We got Túrin.
Yeah.
He's, the black sword. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But the host was just too great.
Much too big. You can kind of see it. You can almost picture it. They're marching out there with their army. They think they got a big army, and then they look over the hill, and this massive army arrives.
Right.
10 times its size with a dragon at the head.
A dragon at the head. Yeah.
Like, this.
And we see that
good.
Túrin was the only one who was really any good against the dragon. He had this dwarf mask that that we there's a little bit in the Children of Húrin that talks a little bit about just how the dwarf mask it actually protects his face from the fire, and it's
right.
It's nobody else had one of those. Just
primitive sunscreen.
Yeah.
It's just it's such a tragic moment and such an unnecessary moment.
It is an unnecessary. Yeah, an
this
unnecessary
did not have
tragedy.
to happen. It certainly didn't have to happen yet, at the very least.
Yeah.
In this way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've always known that Nargothrond,
all the kingdoms
Nargothrond
are
won't last forever. Right, and we know that Gondolin is the one that's supposed to be the last one standing. But still, like you said, it didn't have to happen now, and it didn't have to happen like this.
Oh, just so completely, so utterly defeated.
Mm-hmm.
They're penned in this field between two rivers, and then the host is withered away. That's it. They're done. I'll go ahead and take this little quote, Gwindor's kind of dying words, and we'll talk some about that as well before we move on to Glaurung himself.
Yeah, great.
Then Gwindor said to Túrin, "Let bearing pay for bearing, but ill-fated was mine, and vain is thine, for my body is marred beyond healing, and I must leave Middle-earth. And though I love thee, son of Húrin, yet I rue the day I took thee from the orcs. But for thy prowess and thy pride, still I should have love and life, and Nargothrond should yet stand a while. Now, if thou love me, leave me. Haste thee to Nargothrond and save Finduilas. And this last I say to thee, she alone stands between thee and thy doom. If thou fail her, it shall not fail to find thee. Farewell."
Just heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And more wisdom. He's got this insight, and it's that insight we've talked about before when people are about to die. They're able to kind of see something,
see the future a little bit. Yeah, there's a clarity.
I mean, he knows about the doom, sure, but more importantly, he knows, hey, you can avoid this. You can fix this. You can get out of this doom that you're so afraid of that you keep changing your name. You can get out of it. Just go save Finduilas.
Just go and save Finduilas. If you just do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible. And there's also, again, he manages to combine this very lofty warning with something very, very personal.
Yeah.
Though I love thee, I rue the day I took thee from the orcs. I love you, man, but you've been nothing but trouble.
Seriously. If it weren't for your skill, I'd still have Finduilas. If it weren't for your pride, I'd still have life, and Nargothrond would still.
And I'd still have a Nargothrond.
Yeah, I'd still have a Nargothrond. He has a Nargothrond. It's such a sad death.
It is.
I mean, here's a guy who had gone off to revenge, to gain vengeance for his brother at the Nir Naiath.
At the Nir Naiath, yeah.
When he watched his brother get his hands and feet hewn off and then his head.
Yeah.
So he goes and leads a host into Angband, or into past the gates of Thangorodrim, and And then he's captured, and he's there for, what did we figure, 15 years? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, it might have been a little more. I don't have the math off the top of my head.
Yeah. Long enough for Túrin to go from
being
a very young boy to a grown man.
Exactly. So at least 15, maybe 20 years. I don't know for sure, but somewhere in that range. Absolutely gutted. Comes out, escapes. He's on his own. He runs across Beleg and Túrin. He runs across Beleg runs across him, and then he helps him rescue Túrin. And boy, I mean, what a life this guy has ended up having to lead, and it ends this way.
It ends like this.
It's
like everything that he's done. Much like Beleg, everything that he's done for Túrin,
and this is how he's repaid.
Ends up leading to his ruin. And it's not that Túrin means to do this stuff to people, but he makes these bad choices.
Decisions, exactly. He didn't literally kill Gwindor like he literally killed Beleg, but he caused their deaths just the same.
He did cause their deaths, like we said. Nargothrond should yet stand a while.
Yeah, and if he had just simply obeyed the commands of the suggestion, I should say, of Avala, he would, he'd still be alive.
Right. He had many chances.
Many
you come
chances.
to Nargothrond and they fight this way, and you say no, let's fight that way. Well, that's your first. That was your first chance.
There's your first problem.
That was your first tip. Is that
then you build the bridge.
This way of fighting. Then you build the bridge.
And then you hear the Vala
and then you hear the Vala say, "No, you're doing it wrong."
Yeah,
and
hide back, go back to hiding, knock down the bridge, and just hang out.
Yeah,
but no.
Yeah.
So what does Túrin? Túrin does start out doing the right thing, right? What does he do?
He does. So I'll just take the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Then Túrin sped back to Nargothrond, mustering such of the rout as he met with on the way. And the leaves fell from the trees in a great wind as they went, for the autumn was passing to a dire winter. But the host of the orcs and Glaurung the dragon were there before him, and they came suddenly, ere those that were left on guard were aware of what had befallen on the field of Tumhalad. In that day the bridge over Narog proved an evil, for it was great and mightily made, and could not swiftly be destroyed. And the enemy came readily over the deep river, and Glaurung came in full fire against the doors of Felagund, and overthrew them, and passed within.
Wow. Just, man. So again, he doesn't get back in time.
No.
I think this is probably as good a spot of any to go ahead and do that sidebar I was talking about, since now we see the results of it, right? I mean, here's where we get the fact that they couldn't destroy the bridge in time. So this brings us to something. I don't know how many of you listeners have read Tales from the Perilous Realm. It's a collection of Tolkien's non-Middle-earth related works. Well, I say non-Middle-earth related.
Mostly,
Adventures of Tom Bombadil is in there.
Right.
And there are some poems related. But for the most part, it's other stuff. It's things like Roverandom and Smith of Houghton
Major and
Leaf by Niggle.
Farmer Giles of Ham.
Oh, yeah. Mythopoeia on Fairy Stories, I think, is in there.
Right.
And then,
some of his best stuff.
That's not. It's an amazing book. It's an absolutely amazing volume.
And I think we talked about it briefly. Was it in our Christmas episode, maybe? I think we answered a question about it.
I think we did. We talked about it just briefly.
A little bit,
So I want to talk about something that came up in there. We'll get to where this source is from, but the word I want to talk about is Offermode. Or is it? It's Offermode, right? It's not Offermod.
I think it's Offermode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Those are long O's.
Somebody correct me. I know we've got some
I'm
old
sure
English
they will.
scholars in the audience.
I'm not going to try to pronounce the Old English. It's not. I've got it written out, but no, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. The Offermode of building the bridge across the Narog. It's an Old English word, Offermode, and it means overconfidence, arrogance, or pernicious pride or hubris.
Yeah.
It's also the name given to an essay that Tolkien wrote that accompanies his work, The Homecoming of Beorhthelm's Son, which appears in, I just realized it doesn't appear in Tales from the Perilous Realm. It appears in the newest versions of Tree and Leaf and editions of the Tolkien Reader. But I still recommend Tales from the Perilous Realm.
See, I didn't know that because I don't have Tales from the Perilous Realm. I have the Tolkien Reader, and so I'm thinking,
the Tolkien Reader.
Oh, it's in the Tolkien Reader, so it must be in Tales from the Perilous Realm.
That's part of the problem with things like Tree and Leaf, Tolkien Reader. There's another book called the Tolkien Miscellany that I think was put out by like a sci-fi club that doesn't include it, but does include some other stuff. There's a lot of these little
There's
works.
a handful of overlaps.
Yeah, there are some overlaps, and so you're going to get different volumes. But this
I
is
think I've
in,
got On Fairy Stories in like 5 different books. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. On Fairy Stories shows up in most of them. That is true.
Yeah.
And that for a good reason. That's a seminal piece. Everybody needs to read that.
But yeah, you're right. The Homecoming of Beorhtnoth is, if we're saying that right, is that is a harder one to find.
That is. It is harder. So newer versions of Tree and Leaf, so not like the first and second editions. And like I said, some of the editions of the Tolkien Reader. I apologize for mentioning Tales from the Perilous Realm, but still read that too.
Yeah, it's still a great book. Get it anyway.
So the story of Beorhtnoth, and again, I may totally be pronouncing that incorrectly. He was an Anglo-Saxon earl, and he was facing a Viking invasion in 991. I love that period of time, and I'm studying it. I don't know enough to tell you that know a lot yet. I mean, obviously, a lot of people like the TV show Vikings, or maybe was it The Last Kingdom that was on BBC last year, set in that kind of time frame. But I've been picking up a couple of books and reading about this kind of the Viking invasion and the way they ended up blending with Anglo-Saxon culture. Fascinating stuff.
Okay, I haven't checked that out.
That's an aside, but in this time period, the Vikings were not. They were invading. This was a very serious threat. And in this case, they had sailed up the river to a small island. Now, at low tide, there was a small land bridge between this little island and the plains of Maldon, where Beorhtnoth and his much smaller force were waiting. Now, it was one person at a time could get through this land bridge, so it was really easy to defend.
Right.
The Vikings were unable to defeat the troops on the narrow bridge, so they actually asked Beorhtnoth to allow their warriors to come ashore. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure why they bothered asking, because I certainly would say no. But in the Old English, the poet has this beautiful phrase that I'm not going to try to pronounce that translates to modern English as, "Then the Earl, in his overmastering pride," overmode, "actually yielded ground to the enemy as he should not have done." I love how the poet actually gives his gives his
little commentary on it,
as he
really
should not have done.
That.
And he was right. As you can imagine, Beorhtnoth was slain in battle, his head taken as a prize, and his forces absolutely thoroughly defeated by the Vikings. In the essay accompanying
and as I recall, that's where Tolkien's Homecoming picks up, right? It's sort of a dramatic, it's a dramatic little interchange between a couple of people after the battle. Basically,
it's a stage play, and they're looking for they're looking for Beorhtnoth to bring his body back.
Okay, that's the Homecoming. I think some other things.
Right. Yeah, that's the Homecoming. So he was slain in battle, his head taken as a prize, totally lost. And in the essay that accompanies that piece, Tolkien reminds us that Beorhtnoth, and I love this quote, he was responsible for all the men under him, not to throw away their lives except with one object, the defense of the realm from an implacable foe. Tolkien also argues that it was wholly unfitting that he should treat a desperate battle with this sole real object as a sporting match to the ruin of his purpose and duty. It's starting to sound familiar.
It's starting to sound very familiar.
Very familiar. Tolkien even says that Beorhtnoth sought honor, quote, "at the risk of placing the men most dear to him in a truly heroic situation which they could redeem only by death. Magnificent, perhaps, but certainly wrong. Too foolish to be heroic." End quote. Wow. And later he states absolutely, just clearly, just can't avoid it, Beorhtnoth was wrong and he died for his folly. So clearly Tolkien had this really strong opinion about Beorhtnoth.
Quite.
Well,
and you're right. It's sounding very familiar here. Yeah. Not just because the problematic piece of architecture is the bridge.
The bridge. But that's what triggered the thought of it, because I had read it and then I was reading this and I thought, oh. So, just in case people haven't put two and two together about what a 10th century Anglo-Saxon earl has to do with Túrin, well, earlier we saw that Túrin doesn't like the elves' form of fighting. He doesn't like that stealthy fighting. He wants the big, straight-up, honorable battle. Now,
that's right, yeah.
Now, the orcs might not ask to come ashore, but it seems clear that's the sort of open battle that Túrin is seeking, maybe because it gives him greater glory. That certainly would satisfy his pride. So, Gwindor speaks to him, and this is some of the quotes that I'm going to bring here are from the Children of Húrin, from the fuller version. Túrin, speaks back, and then Gwindor argues and says, "You think of yourself and of your own glory, and bid us each do likewise, but we must think of others beside ourselves." Once again, Gwindor with wise counsel. He's saying, look, there are others. We've got to consider the results that our choices are going to have on them. But does Túrin listen?
Meaning the people below them.
The people below them, the people they're responsible for, the people
not to mention and the civilians. That
even
they're
the civilians, exactly.
Finduilas
and the others who are going to be impacted if we change the way we fight and expose Nargothrond to risk. But he doesn't listen, of course. His pride, which is already deeply rooted, shows up. He builds the bridge. And then, then come the messengers with the message from Ulmo. You ignore him because that's what Beorhtnoth would do.
Right.
And then we find out what we just found out, that the bridge cannot swiftly be destroyed, so the enemy comes readily over the deep river, just like the Vikings came across, and they were allowed to come across because of the actions of Beorhtnoth. So now Túrin, we've kind of touched on this earlier. He's not the actual king of Nargothrond. That's Orodreth. But he's certainly the effective military
but he's certainly
leader.
right. Yeah, I mean, he's got enough sway that he's
he's like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff or something.
Right.
He's the he's the head military guy.
Yeah, he's exactly. Yeah.
And he, like Beorhtnoth, is responsible for all the people under him, for all the elves under him. And he, according to Tolkien, ought not throw their lives away except with one object, the defense of the realm from an implacable foe. But instead, he urges them to fight this open battle because it's more honorable or more glorious. He builds up...
There's that sporting match you talked about.
Exactly, the sporting match. He builds the bridge, which gives up the single most effective defense of the realm. He basically allows his enemies to come ashore because of his pride. He's warned, but again, in his overmode, his pride, he rejects the advice and warning of Ulmo. So, just...
Wow.
Yeah.
The parallels are striking. I mean, and...
They really are.
I mean, you and I have talked about this before, and I've heard you talk about some of this before. But hearing it again, it is really incredible.
It's very striking how similar they are.
It really is just how similar they are.
Yeah.
And there's just one of those ways in which knowing sort of the mythology, a little bit of knowing the bones of Tolkien's world really sheds new light on this because the text here, certainly not the Silmarillion. I don't have Children of Húrin in front of me, but the Silmarillion text really doesn't really make much of a judgment call. A little bit. It mentions his pride
through Gwindor, certainly.
Couple little things about it. Certainly nothing as overt as the Battle of Malden poet you're talking about. He should not have done this. But yeah, it's a really interesting way. You see that. That just knowing this other story just kind of shows you a little bit of the folly of Túrin here.
The bridge thing just really ties it in, and you're like, that's what finally triggered it for me. I was like, wait a minute, and you start to see so many parallels.
You start to think about things like the responsibility for the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Below you, and I don't know, just because
these people are following you. They love you. They have turned their hearts to you. You have an obligation to them not to get them killed.
Yeah.
Just because you want open battle. We learned there was a little bit of that in the alliterative verse last episode where he, even back then when he was still in Doriath, that he relied on sword and targe, right? He's sword and shield, whereas Beleg, was the strongbow. He's out there shooting from the woods, and it's just a different style of fighting. But he seems to think that his is superior and maybe the only valid way. But
it could just be because that's what he likes. He just enjoys it,
and because he's so prideful, he doesn't stop to think that maybe what I like isn't the most useful or the best suited
or the best for this people.
Exactly,
or the best for this situation.
Exactly, appropriate for the circumstances. You mentioned that there's not a lot of blatant judgment against Túrin in this shorter text, but I am going to bring in one quote. We had the messengers from that brought the message from Círdan, that brought the message from Ulmo, Gelmir and Arminas. He actually has a line in Children of Húrin that's worth mentioning. He says that others of the house of Hador bear themselves otherwise, and Tuor among them. For they use courtesy, and they listen to good counsel, holding the lords of the West in awe. But you, it seems, will take counsel with your own wisdom, or with your sword only, and you speak haughtily. So
that's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite passages from the
mic
Children of
drop.
Húrin. Yeah, exactly. That's why I love Gelmir and Arminas so much.
I know. They're great. And Arminas being able to just absolutely lay it on the line because unlike everybody else in Nargothrond, he's not smitten by Túrin. So he's able to kind of say it like it is.
Well, and he just alluded to the fact that he's met Tuor. Mm-hmm. And so he's met, this, again, if we look at Túrin and Tuor as sort of opposites, he's met
can't help but do.
This other possible, I don't know, what Túrin might have been. Túrin as he should have been.
Túrin as he should have been.
Right. And Arminas has met him. He knows what the scion of the House of Hador and the House of Beor and the House of Haleth, all three
houses. That's the whole the
what
cool
it
thing
can
about
be,
both of them.
what that bloodline can culminate
what the
in.
best of men could be. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
But like Beorhtnoth, Túrin was just too foolish to be heroic. He was too prideful. Mm-hmm. And so overmode is a really good word. Look it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we've used it before with Feanor.
Yeah.
Even though it really fits here.
It fits here because of the play with the Battle of Maldon, but certainly, you want to talk about. I mean, if Overmode is defined as
pernicious pride, or overmastering pride,
that pretty much defines Feanor right there. Overconfidence, arrogance, hubris. I mean, it takes hubris to do what he did.
Yeah, exactly.
My goodness. Well, so Túrin shows up, and the fight's basically over. The orcs have driven off, or killed all the rest of the soldiers. And here they are, just basically, plundering the booty, and they've gathered all the people that they're going to take as prisoner onto the terraces. Mm-hmm. And Túrin shows up; that nobody can stand in his way, and he fights his way towards the captives. And now we get to see a new character. So
I can't wait for this one.
Bear with me; my voice is not 100%, so please forgive any weakness. And now he stood alone, for the few that followed him had fled. But in that moment, Glaurung issued from the gaping doors and lay behind, between Túrin and the bridge. Then suddenly he spoke, by the evil spirit that was in him, saying, "Hail, son of Húrin, well met." Then Túrin sprang about and strode against him, and the edges of Gurthang shone as with flame. But Glaurung withheld his blast, and opened wide his serpent eyes, and gazed upon Túrin. Without fear, Túrin looked into them as he raised up the sword, and straightway he fell under the binding spell of the lidless eyes of the dragon, and was halted, moveless. Then for a long time he stood as one graven of stone, and they too were alone, silent before the doors of Nargothrond. But Glaurung spoke again, taunting Túrin, and he said, "Evil have been all thy ways, son of Húrin. Thankless fosterling, outlaw, slayer of thy friend, thief of love, usurper of Nargothrond, captain foolhardy, and deserter of thy kin. As thralls thy mother and thy sister live in Dorlomin, in misery and want. Thou art arrayed as a prince, but they go in rags, and for thee they yearn, but thou carest not for that. Glad may thy father be to learn that he hath such a son, as learn he shall." And Túrin, being under the spell of Glaurung, hearkened to his words, and he saw himself as in a mirror, misshapen by malice, and loathed that which he saw.
Well, there you go.
Glaurung. We'll get more into that.
Glaurung speaks for the first time.
Yeah. I like this. He speaks by the evil spirit that was in him. There's nothing that says what he is got to put him in the Maya category. I mean, is this going to be a fallen spirit, the fallen Maya, that one of Morgoth's buddies in that regard?
I think if anybody's going to be a
be.
Maya, it certainly seems like Glaurung would be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still
those top level ones like Carcharoth and who was his father, Draugluin, and here Glaurung, but.
Yeah, and nothing says it. I mean, having read what we've read about Fallen Fëanor, I'm like, yeah, he
could be a
maybe,
Fallen Fëanor,
maybe not. It would have to be somebody really powerful, really
very
evil.
Powerful.
You know, could be, but
maybe Fëanor really isn't in Mandos. Just Mandos. Just kidding. Just kidding. I can see all the Fëanor fans now. That's too far.
You just called Fëanor Glaurung. Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
No, we didn't.
Kidding.
We just said he's that evil.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, a single fallen Fëanor of an elf.
Thump. No, it's going to have to be somebody very powerful, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Big time. So he falls under a binding spell, and Glaurung does the thing that all villains do, but he doesn't have to pay for it. He monologues. I got you monologuing, but
he doesn't reveal his plan, at least.
Right. That's true.
He doesn't do the Bond villain thing.
No, you're right.
But man,
goodness.
What a monologue! I mean,
isn't it?
We've talked before about Morgoth's ability to just go after,
twist the truth, and turn it into something ugly.
Right? Yeah. You are the way Sauron used the sins of the Noldor against Finrod.
Yeah.
In the song battle.
Absolutely.
Here he is starting from the truth. He's taking Túrin's own sins and using those against them, and man, spinning them in the worst.
I mean, these are true, but they're not true. Right? I mean, they all lack context. They're all in the most negative light possible. Thankless fosterling. Well, yeah, you didn't come back when you were given pardon.
True.
You treated the king poorly. Outlaw, well, yeah, you were actually.
Yeah.
Slayer of my friend. Well, sure, I didn't mean to.
It was an accident, but you did it.
Thief of love. Well,
he didn't mean to take Finduilas' love.
Usurper of
Nargothrond. I like that one.
Boy, that's a good one. Well, usurper is just a great word.
It is, yeah. Captain Foolhardy.
Yeah.
He certainly is, although...
Built the bridge. I think that's what that is right there. You are an idiot, sir. You built the bridge. And here I am. I wouldn't be here if you hadn't done this.
Yeah. Although this phrase, Captain Foolhardy, I'm just noticing, I'm thinking of a Tolkien fun fact we need to bring into an episode soon, I think. About this word foolhardy.
You'll have to fill me in on that one later. I can't think of that off the top of my head.
Well, we'll get there's Tolkien fun fact I've been thinking about for a while, and I'm seeing it here. I'm like, oh, this is a sign. I need to bring this in.
Well, don't tease this anymore. Bring it in next episode. Deserter of thy kin, of course. I mean, he could have gone back at any point. Boy, and then the nasty dig at the end.
Really goes into the deserter of thy kin bit, doesn't he?
Boy, you're arrayed as a prince. They go in rags. You don't care. Oh, by the way, I'm going to tell your dad.
Yeah. Oh, glad may thy father be. Oh, and just like the sarcastic.
It's just nasty.
It's just awful.
It really is. He is just as evil.
He's not only evil, he's just mean.
He is. He's he's mean. Oh, goodness. So what happens while, during this monologue? You've got a little bit here.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want you to have to read this whole thing, so we broke it up a little bit.
I appreciate that. It gives us a chance to talk about it, too.
Yeah, and it gives you a chance to have a little drink of water after
you're not kidding.
Doing the Glaurung.
Glaurung's a little rough.
Yeah. All right, so I'll take the next paragraph. And while he was yet held by the eyes of the dragon in torment of mind, and could not stir, the orcs drove away the herded captives, and they passed nigh to Túrin and crossed over the bridge. Among them was Finduilas, and she cried out to Túrin as she went. But not until her cries and the wailing of the captives was lost upon the northward road did Glaurung release Túrin, and he might not stop his ears against that voice that haunted him after.
Oh, goodness. I can't even imagine. You hear it, but you can't do anything about it.
You can't do anything. You have no power to do anything about it, and all you're doing is hearing the cries of this woman.
Who you know loves you and is desperate.
Who you know loves you and is desperate to
have you save her.
Be saved.
And who you know, if you save her, you might be able to escape your doom.
Right,
but boy, I mean, let's talk about the power. I think this alone tells me it's got to be a Maya, actually. I mean, this level of power, to be able to bind a person like this and say, in essence, you are unable to move. That I don't think a standard Fea would be able to do that. I don't know.
No, although it could be a power granted by Morgoth. I mean, we know Morgoth has put a lot of his power into his minions.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Maybe I'm just assuming too much. It just seems like such a powerful thing, almost like the girdle that Melian does, or some of
this is mind control. I mean, this is this is a kind of power over people that we just don't see.
Yeah, what is that? Like a level 3 spell in D&D? What, paralysis? Roll D6. Your opponent cannot move for that number of
saving
rounds.
Throw versus dragon spell. You failed your saving throw.
Yeah. Oh man, Túrin definitely failed his saving throw.
Oh, he's
like over and over and over and over and over.
Oh man, the DM's giving him loaded dice for all his saving.
Seriously, throw your saving roll on recognizing your sister. Ones. Oh man, really? Did you seriously just roll double ones? Oh man, you're not gonna like this.
You're gonna pay for this one. This is gonna be ugly.
Oh goodness.
Your friends are gonna be talking about this one for a while.
Seriously, you're gonna be in a book. Poor Túrin. I mean, really, he might not stop his ears against that voice that haunted him after. Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, just heartbreaking to realize, you're the only one who might have been able to save these people, and you're stuck. You cannot move.
You're stuck just hearing it and unable to move.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing. I mean, it'd be one thing if he was, put to sleep or something and he couldn't hear it.
But to be fully aware.
That's the torment.
And just like with Húrin. I mean, there's Húrin fully aware of everything that's going on, but unable to do anything about it.
That's true.
That's the nastiest thing, to be aware and yet powerless.
Yeah.
I think that's really, we're seeing that here with Túrin, and I think it helps us remember that that's what Húrin is experiencing and has been now for 15 years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm going to go ahead and pick up from there, and we'll get back to discussion on that. Then suddenly Glaurung withdrew his glance and waited, and Túrin stirred slowly as one waking from a hideous dream. Then coming to himself, he sprang upon the dragon with a cry. But Glaurung laughed, saying, "If thou wilt be slain, I will slay thee, gladly. But small help will that be to Morwen and Nienor. No heed didst thou give to the cries of the elf woman. Wilt thou deny also the bond of thy blood?" But Túrin, drawing back his sword, stabbed at the dragon's eyes, and Glaurung, coiling back, swiftly towered above him and said, "Nay, at least thou art valiant, beyond all whom I have met. And they lie who say that we of our part do not honor the valor of foes. See now, I offer thee freedom. Go to thy kin, if thou canst. Get thee gone, and if elf or man be left to make tale of these days, then surely in scorn they will name thee, if thou spurnest this gift." Then Túrin, being yet bemused by the eyes of the dragon, as were he treating with a foe that could know pity, believed the words of Glaurung, and turning away, he sped over the bridge. But as he went, Glaurung spoke behind him, saying in a fell voice, "Haste thee now, son of Húrin, to Dorlomin, or perhaps the orc shall come before thee once again. And if thou tarry for Finduilas, then never shalt thou see Morwen again, and never at all shalt thou see Nienor, thy sister, and they will curse thee. But Túrin passed away on the northward road, and Glaurung laughed once more, for he had accomplished the errand of his master. Then he turned to his own pleasure, and sent forth his blast, and burned all about him. But all the orcs that were busy in the sack, he routed forth and drove them away, and denied them their plunder even to the last thing of worth. The bridge then he broke down, and cast into the foam of Narog. And being thus secure, he gathered all the hoard and riches of Felagund, and heaped them, and lay upon them in the innermost hall, and rested a while. My goodness.
Man, just going
so
straight.
Much there.
Oh, yeah. Just, again, going straight for that weakness.
Boy, you are not kidding.
And cold-blooded. You're going, attacking him for giving no heed to Finduilas's cries.
Yeah.
When he couldn't.
When you couldn't. You weren't paying, It's like when the 8-year-old guy that at your school, and you're 6 and you're little, and the guy keeps grabbing your hand and punching you. Why are you punching yourself in the face?
Yeah, exactly.
Why are you punching yourself in the face?
Yeah.
No heeds did you give to the cries of the elf woman. Really, you didn't do anything.
Because I had you paralyzed.
Because I had you,
with the dragon spell.
Yeah, your old ones. Yeah. Oh,
and
man.
then
brutal.
And then he's created this whole.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what you call it, but just this
kind of a
sort
dilemma.
of feeling of inadequacy about
going A or B. You gotta. Well, he's creating this false dilemma.
He's creating this false dilemma. This I guess what I'm thinking of, like this this false idea that Morwen and Nienor are just sitting around cursing Túrin's
and they're like
name.
Hours away from death, and if you don't hurry up now, they're going to starve.
Right. Yeah. He's created this, and then he says, and you have to go leave Finduilas to her fate.
And it's a gift. I'm giving you freedom.
Yeah, and it's a gift. Yeah. As if you were dealing with a foe who could know pity. Oh,
seriously.
Nah,
and that's a good reminder for the reader to remember that Glaurung isn't speaking truth here at all.
Right.
This is not a guy who's feeling any pity for Túrin. This is a guy who's trying to trick him. And we get that confirmed when we find out that he accomplished the errand of his master. I love the little bits.
I love that.
Isn't that awesome?
That's the errand of his master.
The errand of his master.
Tricking Túrin into this, tricking Mr. Bad Choices into another horrible choice.
Which is really easy. I mean, you can trick Túrin into making a bad choice pretty simply.
Especially if you give him, especially if you feed him with lies and
right.
But I love that that's the errand of his master, and then destroying Nargothrond is his pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. I've done my job. Now I'm off the clock.
Now it's time for a little R&R. I'm gonna destroy the city and keep up all this gold.
Keep up all the gold. Now, if I remember correctly, the House of Finrod is the one that they brought the most treasure out of Valinor.
That's right. Yeah.
And look what good it did them.
Yeah. Couldn't take it with them, could they?
But isn't it interesting? We see that he breaks down the bridge and is now thus secure.
Yeah.
So even he knows, hey, if I don't want anybody to attack me here.
This bridge was always a bad idea.
This bridge has got to go, man.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he takes a nap.
Yeah. Man.
Oh, goodness. The dragon is an amazing tool in Morgoth's kind of disinformation campaign.
He is, and
he's a tool of the curse here, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
That's the thing.
And I mean, and I think that's, we'll talk more about what, the nature of the curse.
Right.
What degree of power this curse really has.
Well, I've got a passage I want to talk about that talks about that. It's from Children of Húrin. It actually should have been read last time because it was earlier on. So it was from the section we read in the previous episode. But I think it talks a little bit about the curse in a way that helps us understand the nature of the curse. Here's the quote. It's from Children of Húrin. Report of the dragon helm in the land west of Sirion came swiftly to the ear of Morgoth, and he laughed. So this is back when he was with the rebels and on Amon Ruth. For now Túrin was revealed to him again, who had long been lost in the shadows and under the veils of Melian. Yet he began to fear, this is Morgoth, yet he began to fear that Túrin would grow to such a power that the curse that he had laid upon him would become void, and he would escape the doom that had been designed for him, or else that he might retreat to Doriath and be lost to his sight again. Now, therefore, he had a mind to seize Túrin and afflict him even as his father, to torment him and enslave him. And, of course, that's what they tried to do. They tried to capture Túrin. And they did. And then the orcs lost him. You did what? You lost who?
No, that is actually that's a really good paragraph.
Yeah,
and
there's some really revealing bits that he was lost in the shadows and under the veils. But I think the big key right there is that Túrin could grow to such a power that the curse would become void.
Yeah. So I think that tells us, and we'll talk about this more next time, I think.
We will.
But
this is kind of a teaser. We'll go more into it next time.
But I think there is something there.
There is.
But there is also, there's the possibility for Túrin to escape it.
Exactly. It may not be easy. It may be very hard.
Right.
But it's clearly possible, given the way this is phrased, it's possible for him to grow strong
to such a power
that it could be made void.
That the curse could be made void.
And if it could be made void, then it's not inescapable.
Right, exactly. But he'll never do that.
No, because
if he doesn't get good information.
Right choices. Yeah, you're right. That's true.
And you give him bad information, he will make bad choices. And I think that's part of Morgoth's. This is a little teaser, but I've always seen this curse idea as sort of like a hand that Túrin is dealt, and how he chooses to play it is his own choice. That's his free will.
It's a really bad hand. He should have just folded the minute he got the card.
It's a horrible hand.
But he's just doubled down.
Exactly. Yeah. But he had a choice of what to do with that hand. Should I play it or should I fold?
Right.
Or should I raise?
I'll take 4 cards, please.
Yeah. Here we see this, like you said, this disinformation campaign.
Yeah.
That's stacking the deck.
It really is.
If we want to carry this card metaphor forward.
Boy, we want to stretch it way too far.
but it is. I mean, these are the tools that Morgoth has. He has this ability. Lies. He's
lies
going to use
his most powerful tool. They were his most powerful tool, even in Valinor, weren't they?
True.
When he started to separate the Noldor from the Valar.
Right. And here you see where he has these. If you listen to his lies, you listen instead of the wise counsel of people like Gwindor.
That's the thing. It's not as though Túrin only heard the lies of Morgoth. He got wisdom. He got wisdom from Beleg. He got wisdom from Gwindor. He'll get wisdom from other sources going forward. But yeah.
So
that's
more
rough.
on that next time. But,
definitely more on that. I wanted to bring that paragraph up. I really should have referenced that last episode, but it fits so much with the curse. I wanted to make sure we saw that there were those two possibilities, not only his own power, but even just his geographic location. Being behind the girdle would keep him lost to Morgoth.
Keep him hidden, yeah.
Right. And in that situation, the curse would have no power. That's, again, we'll get more of that later.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. Fun stuff. So now Túrin goes north. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right. And Túrin hastened along the ways to the north, through the lands now desolate between Narog and Teglin. And the fell winter came down to meet him. For in that year snow fell ere autumn was past, and spring came late and cold. Ever it seemed to him as he went that he heard the cries of Finduilas, calling his name by wood and hill. And great was his anguish. But his heart being hot with the lies of Glaurung, and seeing ever in his mind the orcs burning the house of Húrin, or putting Morwen and Nienor to torment, he held on his way, and turned never aside.
Oh.
So here again, even his own heart, his own mind is, he's remembering the cries of Finduilas, and he is tormented. Part
was
of
his
him,
anguish,
a big part of him wants to go after Finduilas. That is what Gwindor told him to do.
And I think it's what he knows in his heart is the right thing.
I think you're right, but he is swayed by the lies of Glaurung.
Yeah. Not controlled by, but swayed by, persuaded.
Not controlled, but swayed by. Yeah, his heart is hot.
Oh, man. And he just, you can't help but think, dude, couldn't you try to go rescue Finduilas and then go find your mom and sister who've been okay for the last, X years?
Right. I know, right.
What's another day or two? I mean,
yeah, I know. I know. How far away could Finduilas be at this point?
Really?
And that's important to remember in a couple of pages.
Yes, it is.
She's not far away. They've just left Nargothrond.
No, she's sticking around somewhere.
Yeah.
Sorry. Man,
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you did.
Man, that's awful.
I'm probably gonna get mail on that one.
She's not gonna hang around and wait for him all day.
Well, maybe she will. There's no point. Okay. And on that note, so 40 leagues and more he journeys. So what did we decide a league was? 3 miles? Yeah, 3 miles. It's 3 miles. So that's 120 miles that he journeyed without rest to get to the pools of Ivrin. So that's a long way without resting. My goodness. That's what, 5 marathons almost? Yeah, 5 marathons would be 130 miles. But yeah, that's like 5 full marathons.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's not running those at 4.5 minute mile paces.
No, but still, he's moving.
That's like probably 30 hours of solid jogging, without even breaking for a rest. So he's something. He can't drink at the pools of Ivrin. They're frozen.
They're frozen, and I love that. Remember, Ivrin has been a symbol of Finduilas for a few pages now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and it's also a reminder of the power of Ulmo. The message that we got from those two talks about the evil of the north has defiled the springs of Sirion, and my power withdraws from the fingers of the flowing waters.
That's right. Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that too, I think. So he gets back to his house. There's nobody there. There's been nobody there. They've left. So he goes to Brada because the Brada's house, because he remembers that he had married one of his mother's kinswoman, Iron.
Yep.
And so he finds out that sure enough, Mormon's gone. She fled with Nienor, and only Iron knew where. So I'm going to take a little bit of this next paragraph, not the whole thing, just the first half of it. Then Túrin strode to Brada's table, and seizing him, he drew his sword and demanded that he be told whither Morwen had gone. And Iron declared to him that she went to Doriath, the Seeker's son. For the lands were freed then from evil, she said, by the black sword of the south, who now is fallen, they say. Then Túrin's eyes were opened, and the last threads of Glaurung's spell were loosed, and for anguish and wrath at the lies that had deluded him, and hatred of the oppressors of Morwen, a black rage seized him, and he slew Brada in his hall and other Easterlings that were his guests. I guess
because it's Brada's fault.
Because it's Brada's fault
to him, and he made the wrong choice.
I mean, Brada's not a good guy. Let's be clear.
No, he's an Easterling who's
who's tormenting all these people.
We know why the Easterlings are there. They were given this land by Morgoth. But
right.
Can't be a good guy, but still. Not his fault, dude.
No, and certainly not the guests that were in his hall. I was just here for dinner. Thump.
Oh man,
just a bad time to be there. Don't want to go to that dinner party.
It's unfortunate that we don't get the the Easterling songs that came out of the tragedy,
the slaying of Brada and his friends.
A man without gaiety who came to Brada's hall and killed everybody one day.
Seriously. Oh man. We also don't get what we get in Children of Húrin, which is a detailed description of how this ends up really backfiring on all the people
on Iron and all the people of Dor-lómin
and all the people of Dor-lómin that are still left under the Easterlings' rule. It's bad. It's really, really, really bad. And
Iron even his aunt, right? She was his aunt or a cousin?
No, she was a kinswoman of Morwen, but that's all. I don't remember.
Maybe a cousin or something. Iron just kind of takes him aside and says, "You really should. Yeah, you really should never have come here. And could you please leave? Just
pretty much
leave as soon as you can." Basically.
And if I remember correctly, doesn't she end up burning her house down? I mean, with herself in it. There is some pretty graphic stuff in
That sounds about right. I can't remember that specifically, but
yeah,
I'd
have to pull that up. Maybe during your next reading, I'll pull that up.
Okay.
But he flees, and he gets back to outlaws again, right?
Yeah. Well, he does. He does have this little moment of in this paragraph that we're not going to read. But where is it? This a shadow I cast wheresoever I come. We don't see his conversation with Iron, but we do see that he realizes he should never have gone there.
Yeah, he just brings trouble.
He just brings trouble everywhere he goes. Now you figure that out.
Now you figure that out.
Yeah. So now he's decided to do something different, and I will take the next paragraph.
Okay.
Now Túrin, coming down from Eredwethrin, sought for Finduilas in vain, roaming the woods beneath the mountains, wild and wary as a beast. And he waylaid all the roads that went north to the pass of Sirion. But he was too late, for all the trails had grown old, or were washed away by the winter. Yet thus it was that passing southwards down Teglin, Túrin came upon some of the men of Brethil that were surrounded by orcs, and he delivered them, for the orcs fled from Gurthang. He named himself Wild Men of the Woods, and they besought him to come and dwell with them. But he said that he had an errand, yet unachieved, to seek Finduilas, Orodreth's daughter of Nargothrond. Then Dorlas, the leader of those woodmen, told the grievous tidings of her death. For the men of Brethil had waylaid at the crossings of Teglin the orc host that led the captives of Nargothrond, hoping to rescue them. But the orcs had at once cruelly slain their prisoners, and Finduilas they pinned to a tree with a spear. So she died, saying at the last, "Tell the Mormogil that Finduilas is here." Therefore they had laid her in a mound near that place, and named it Houth and Eleth, the mound of the elf maid.
Oh, it's a beautiful name. Houth and Eleth.
Houth and Eleth.
Yeah, just as a recap before we touch on that, I want to go back to the end of the chapter.
Iron.
In Children of Húrin, in the return of Túrin to Dor-lómin. This is after she's basically chastised him and saying, basically, go swiftly, go to Morwen, or I'll hold you, responsible. Basically, you've brought death to me with your violence. The incomers will avenge this night on all that were here. He calls her faint-hearted.
That's right. Yeah.
And but come, I'll bring you to Morwen. She goes, no, I'll die in the wild with you as I will with the Easterlings. So you can't fix what you've done. Go, do the right thing, basically. And as he's running, he's with some of these others, the rebels that had strength to follow him. And he turns around and he sees a red light far off in the land. He says, "They fired the hall," said Túrin. "To what purpose is that?" "They? No, Lord. She, I guess," said one, Asgon by name. "Many a man of arms misreads patience and quiet. She did much good among us at much cost. Her heart was not faint, and patience will break at the last." So she knew she was going to die.
Once again, he misjudged her.
He totally misjudged her. Really sad. I mean, he left that place in much worse shape than if he'd just never gone there. But again, that kid's got to be part of Glaurung's plan too, or Morgoth's plan. I'm sure he knew that if you go back there, you're going to bring bad things because
bring
that's
bad
what
things
you do.
to Dor-lómin. Yeah.
So
and also consequently, you can't do anything about Finduilas because she was
right
close when you left Nargothrond.
And
but
now she's not close.
By the time he gets back, he's gone all the way north and all the way back south.
Let's talk about that distance again, 120 plus miles.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that 120 miles was just to the pools of Ivrin, and it was further than that to get into Dor-lómin.
Right, yeah,
so,
you're right.
This is a long way.
Good long way, yeah.
I mean, this isn't like going down the street and saying, I'm just going to double back a block.
No.
This is
yeah.
I'm in L.A., I know I need to go to San Diego, but if it's okay with you, I'm going to drive to San Francisco first, and then I'll go to San Diego.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I have urgent business in San Diego, but I need to go to San Francisco first.
Except I should look at the geography. I wouldn't actually. Now that I think about it, hold on. Yeah, where this was, where the crossings of Teglin, it's more like I need to go to San Francisco, but I'm going to let's see. I have urgent business in Santa Barbara. But I'm going to go to San Francisco first, even though Santa Barbara's on my way. I could go there and then still go home. But no, I believe that lizard guy.
Yeah. He seemed like he was on the level. He seemed like he had my best interest at heart.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he let me live. He could have killed me.
Right, yeah.
Duh.
Gift of gab, that one. That's what
the gift of gab. Oh.
But yeah.
So sad. And now
Poor
we come back
Finduilas.
and discuss Finduilas and Dorlus, the leader of these woodmen. Oh my goodness. So he comes across these men, he saves them. They're like, "Hey, here's what happened." Mm-hmm. Oh, she died saying, "Tell the Mormogill that Finduilas is here."
Mm-hmm.
Her very last thoughts are about him.
Mm. He really should have gone after her.
Boy, he really let her down.
He really did let her down. Yeah.
And yeah, it's such a sad thing.
It is, and just a brutal death. I mean,
pinned to a tree with a spear.
Yeah, we can make all the sick jokes about it we want.
I know, and I'm sorry.
It's just no. It's hey, we gotta have
Yeah, you gotta lighten this stuff up.
You gotta have a little fun with it, respectfully, of course. But
of course.
No, it's just a gruesome death.
It is.
I mean, this poor woman.
Oh, goodness.
But
at least the name of the place is beautiful. Houghton.
Houghton.
Yeah.
Such a lovely name. Yeah.
It really is. I don't, that's, we're going to get some other lovely names of some places, in this, near the crossings of Taglin, next episode.
Better also, yes, beautiful words, but
sad
not
meanings.
So great connotations.
And he gets another meaning. Another name, sorry.
Wild Man of the Woods.
This one doesn't have a separate meaning because it kind of is what it says.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to explain this one like, Mormogill or, Gorthal or any of these others.
And yet at no point did the men of Brethil say, Wild Men of the Woods. That sounds like a pseudonym.
That's more of
I think you made that up. Okay, sure, whatever.
Sure. Okay, Wild. Is that Wild and Man is your middle name and Of the Woods is your last name? What? I don't understand.
Or maybe he's like, maybe Wildman is his surname.
That's
he's
your surname, Wildman. Joe Wildman.
Joe Wildman.
But I come from the woods, so I call of the woods. Not of the Hills Wildmans. We're not related.
No, we're the Woods Wildmans. Those Hills Wildmans, they're just
they're crazy.
You don't want to mess with those guys.
So so he brings him back. We're not going to read this next paragraph, but they get back to in the deeps of Brethil. They realize that they recognize the black sword, and by the quest they realize, this is
that's the Mormogill.
That's the Mormogill. So they bring him home. They talk about Brandir, the son of Handir, who's ruling them. We're going to see a lot of him in the next episode, so we want to make sure we see a little bit about him. He is a man of gentle mood, lame from childhood, and he trusted rather in secrecy than in deeds of war to save them from the power of the North. I think you get a clue as to how that's going to go over with Túrin. So he, of course, was afraid when he realized that this is Túrin.
It's like, no, do away with the secrecy thing. I've got some great ideas for fighting for you guys.
How did that work out, Túrin? Can you tell us how that worked out for Nargothrond?
He's like the monorail salesman from The Simpsons. He just comes in and just like...
that's
it's like, no, this is what you guys need some... You guys need some sporting fighting with swords and shields.
Oh, goodness. But you know what? I have to say, I like this about Brandir. Even though he's afraid, this is Túrin, he's moved by his woe, and he tends him, and he heals him. I love that.
Yeah. He's a healer.
Yeah,
I like that.
But I am going to read the rest of that paragraph, which actually takes us to the end of our reading for tonight. Let's see. And with the beginning of spring, Túrin cast off his darkness and grew hale again. And he arose, and he thought that he would remain in Brethil, hidden, and put his shadow behind him, forsaking the past. He took therefore a new name, Turambar, which in the high... I know, he took a new name. I'm sorry. Let me just reread that.
Imagine that. Sorry.
I know, me too. It's okay, we'll get to that. He took therefore a new name, Turambar, which in the high elven speech signified Master of Doom. And he besought the woodman to forget that he was a stranger among them, or ever bore any other name. Nonetheless, he would not wholly leave deeds of war, for he could not endure that the orcs should come to the crossings of Teglin, or draw nigh to Houth and Eleth. And he made that place a place of dread for them, so that they shunned it. But he laid his black sword by, and wielded rather the bow and the spear. Okay, so let's get to the part that made us laugh first, which is Turambar. For those of you keeping score at home, that's 7 names. 8 if you count Túrin, the one his mom and dad gave him.
Right.
Nathan the Wronged, Gorthal the Dreadhelm, Agarwain, son of Umarth, the Bloodstained son of Ill-Fate, because that's not dramatic enough.
Because that sounds like a good luck name.
It really does. That's going to fix things. Adonithel, the Elfman, Mormagil, the Black Sword, the Wildman of the Woods. Actually, that's 7, and now Turambar is 8.
Wow. That's, and that there's even one other pet name that Finduilas gave him at Nargothrond, which we didn't even see in the Silmarillion.
You're right.
I think it's in Children of Húrin, but
it is, or in the Narn, yeah.
She came up with she called him Thurin.
Yeah, that freaked him out. I remember.
That freaked him out.
You just said what?
There's that one passage, just like, I don't think your name is a Garwain. You seem like a Thurin to me. He's like, whoa, wait, what? Where did you hear that name?
Seriously.
Oh man!
But he just keeps changing his name as though that's going to fix
his name as though that's going to fix things. He should have listened to Gwindor.
Right.
Gwindor told him a long time ago, changing your name is not going to solve your problems.
No, changing your actions, changing your choices.
Yep.
And it's hard because of course we all as readers here have the benefit of godlike vision and hindsight. But even without that, putting yourself in the shoes of this character, you've got to think. You got a message from Avala, man. Knock the bridge down. You got a message from your dying friend. Go find Finduilas. Yeah.
Never listens to counsel.
No.
Who does he listen to? He listens to the dragon.
You listen to one guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
One guy. Right. One guy you met in your travels.
Seriously.
That's the one you listen to.
That's the guy. Not Beleg, not Thingol, not even Melian.
No,
certainly not Gwindor. Oh man.
Yeah. The giant serpent with the evil spirit in it.
That's the guy. That's the one to listen to. He did make one good choice, though. He fought with the bow and spear to keep secret.
I was noticing that. So actually he does seem to have adopted the secrecy a little bit here.
Yeah. He tells them, don't even talk about the fact that I had another name. I've been here all my life, I'm not new to you, please. We'll see that won't serve him well, actually, coming up. But
that's true, yeah.
Oh, man.
I like that he made Houth and Eleth a place of dread for the orcs.
Too. A little bit of vengeance.
A little bit of vengeance for Finduilas. I like that.
Yeah, some justice.
Yeah.
Well, of course, and that makes sense going back to his strong sense of justice and compassion. Yeah. I mean, Túrin is such a conundrum. He really is. He does have compassion. He does have this sense of justice. And yet, like we've talked about 100 times, he's just so short-sighted with his actions, and he's so filled with pride that he's not able to see the right decision to make more often than not.
Right. It's not that it's really not just that he makes bad choices. It's that he doesn't seem to know how to make a good choice. He doesn't seem to know how to
analyze and think through.
He doesn't seem to have the filters in place to figure out,
right.
This is the counsel I should listen to. These are the facts that I should take in. This is what I should, it's a very, very interesting, you mentioned last time this tragic hero. It is an interesting tragic flaw. Yeah. That he just he does not seem capable of taking in the right information to make a decision.
Exactly.
Make a good decision.
Oh,
fascinating.
Man. It really is.
And so this kind of leads him to, struggle against his fate because he thinks that's his problem, to flee his fate.
Yeah. He's always trying to change it. And, we'll obviously talk a lot more about that. The next episode, we're going to do a lot of kind of retrospective, looking back on his decisions, looking back on the nature of the curse, looking back on free will. I mean, this is really, This is a big topic. I mean, this is a really good point. This is a good story in which to come back to that issue that we learned about early on, that men are given more free will than elves.
Yes,
elves
definitely.
have free will. Elves are able to choose. The circumstances that happen in their lives, the things that take place, they may not be able to choose, but their responses to them they can choose. With men, they have this ability to shape things.
Right. Amid the powers and chances. Yeah.
Yeah. And their shaping is to even shape it beyond what the music has already said.
Right.
And that's big, you know, and that free will has to come into play somehow. And how is that limited by the curse? All of those things are things we're going to talk about in the next episode.
Definitely.
We're really excited. I'm going to get to talk about Boethius. How often do you get to hear about him on a podcast? So
I'm going to get to talk about Oedipus, which is going to be nice.
That will be. It's going to be a hard one. The next episode is tough. Maybe we should even say it's, even though we certainly won't be addressing, you know, we'll be using our family-friendly language. Next episode is probably not a kid-related one if you're a youngster listening to this. It's a little bit more, what would you call it? Mature audiences. It's mature themes. It's a real heavy chapter, or heavy
brutal.
Part of the chapter.
Just
really
brutal.
Is. So, you know, keep that in mind. If you are a first-time reader, don't be surprised that this tragedy ends, well, tragically. As one might expect. We will try to keep it light, but at the same time, we can't ignore, you know, the nature of what happens. But that is for the next episode. For this episode, well, it wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. We thank you very much for joining us.
And join us again next time when we wrap up our discussion of Chapter 21 of Túrin Turambar. We will get to the exciting conclusion, and as you know,
exciting might not be the word I'd use.
the horrific conclusion, and talk about all the things that we're really looking forward to getting into.
Absolutely.
And as Alan said, it's tragedy, so I'm sure you can imagine how it all ends.
Don't be surprised. And remember, if you are reading along and you want to take notes like we do, don't mark up those first edition hardcovers. Please go to the official library tab on our website, theprancingponypodcast.com, where you can find links to cheap paperbacks of Tolkien's works, audiobooks, music CDs, and some other cool things for your Tolkien bookshelf. We've seen those shelfies and we love them. If you buy through those links, you'll even be helping to support the show just a tiny little bit without costing you a penny more.
That's right. And you can also support us by leaving us a review on iTunes. Even if you don't listen to us on iTunes, you can leave us a review there. All you need is a few moments and an Apple ID. If you haven't done so already, you can subscribe on iTunes or through your favorite podcast app. You can find our RSS feed on our website or find us on Google Play, TuneIn, Stitcher, and most of the other podcast directories.
And I want to echo that thing about the iTunes reviews. We've got, probably about 2,500 regular listeners now, and we have 23 reviews. Come on, folks. Help us out a little bit.
Get us over 1%.
That's wow, 1% of you. Thanks a lot, folks. No, we do appreciate those who have, and we know not everybody has iTunes accounts. But thanks for those of you who are connecting with us on social media. We did set out to start a conversation that everyone could join. That's why we called this The Prancing Pony, and that's why we have the online common room at Facebook at The Prancing Pony Podcast and on Twitter at Prancing Pony Pod.
And social media is a great place to share the podcast as well. So please retweet us, share us, tell your friends.
Yes, definitely. And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your questions, comments, or your menu requests for a dragon-hosted barbecue. I'm thinking brisket for sure.
Older and brisket.
To the Prancing Pony Podcast at gmail.com, and we'll try to get them into our next episode. Well, an hour 50 is still far too short a time to spend amongst such admirable listeners, but until next time,
farewell, friends.